Hi guys, and welcome back to the Gimme A Hull Yeah Wrestling Podcast. We have the second episode of Wrestling with Bands today with Sellsword and Tom Keeley, who is the bassist of that band. Really cool kind of power metal act from Yorkshire, talking about logic in wrestling and realism, which is obviously an interesting debate at the moment. So I hope you guys enjoy this, and thank you very much for watching and listening and supporting. Like and subscribe and all that stuff, and we will see you again. You know, before we talk about wrestling, tell me about Sellsword and your journey with that band, because you've done some amazing things, played some festivals. You've obviously had a lot of lineup changes over the years. It's been, but you've been able to garner quite a following, with some epic power metal that people do love. Whether it's in York or whether it's across the country. Do you know what I mean? So, Tell me about your journey with the band Sellsword. Obviously, you play bass.
So Sellsword started about 6 years ago as a bit of a joke between me and Alex, who's the drummer at the time.
Oh, yeah.
He's in Holland at the minute doing his PhD in archaeology. And me and him were playing in various different bands together. It was always like we came as a package sort of thing. Like if you need a bassist, oh, by the way, I've got a drummer mate as well. So we always we played in like 3 different bands together. And it just started off as a bit of a joke, and then one night I was out in town with my girlfriend at the time, and she introduced me to Stu, who was doing an acoustic night.
Yeah.
And then he sang a Dio song, I think. I can't remember which one. But as soon as he sang it, I just grabbed him afterwards and said, "Me and you were making a power metal band." And he went, "Cool."
Hey.
And then it just went off from there. And it was always at the time, me and Alex were in another band, and that was our main focus. And then the other band started kind of losing momentum. So then Sellsword just kind of picked up, and then it became a kind of a thing. And then, we got, a couple of guitarists, and then it just went off from there. Yeah, so we had a few lineup changes. Like I said, Alex has gone off to Holland, so we luckily got Tom Warner on drums, who's absolutely nuts drummer. He's absolutely insanely good.
Yeah.
And he's played with so many. He's done so many tours with major bands. I think he did a tour with Ailstorm. He filled in for Ailstorm one time, which is pretty cool.
Yeah,
that's really Sellsword's just been one of these bands that's just slowly growing. And then when we played Bloodstock on the Unsigned stage, that was crazy. I was expecting 100 people maybe, and then you kind of walk out on stage and it was full. It was absolutely rammed. And the fact that the guys at the festival text were saying it was the most they've seen it filled. I think it was probably because we took a trebuchet on stage with us, but
Oh man, yeah, it's an amazing.
Yeah, it's been great.
Yeah, it's awesome, man. So tell me about, again, obviously you mentioned Bloodstock. Tell me about some highlights. I know you've played great hometown shows. Obviously, you obviously had, again, a great local following. You've released some stuff. What's been some highlights for you with the band since its inception, really?
Obviously Bloodstock, that was amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, that whole just the fact that we got to go to Bloodstock for free was pretty cool. For what was essentially half an hour's work. We went on tour with High Devoke. That was really cool. We did another tour before that, which was an absolute shit show, but it was that was still quite fun. There's just been loads of really cool gigs. The gigs, like you say, in York at Fulford Arms. It's a small venue, but it's a great venue.
Yeah.
I mean, Chris, who runs it, is an absolutely awesome guy.
Yeah.
Those gigs have always been great because they've always been full, and they're always sweaty, and it feels like a proper metal gig, and everyone's just having a good time. I think that's the main thing for me is as long as people are having a good time, then if the sound's not great and if I'm not playing too good, it's not a big deal. If everyone kind of walks away from it going, "I had a really fun night," that's a win for me.
I think you've built, again, I do think you've built such a great reputation, especially within the sort of power metal, symphonic metal scene. You know, people do love Sellsword, and you've kind of become, you know, a name that people band around now, especially particularly obviously in Yorkshire and the North, which is fantastic. You know, so because I know that again things have changed up a little bit. So what are the band's plans that you can tell me at least post lockdown? What are you thinking about talking about?
Well, we still need a new singer.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately Stu had to leave the band because of health problems. And his last gig was really cool. That was a really fun night. So we never wanted Stu to leave, but he's got health problems. So he just he can't be on stage anymore, basically.
Yeah.
So we are still looking for a new singer. We had a few auditions, and I don't think any of them really meet the level that we were looking for.
Yeah.
Really good auditions, though. I don't think any one of them we'd say were terrible. They just didn't quite hit the mark.
They weren't what. Yeah, obviously you've got a very, because you've been a band for so long. You've got a very specific. It's not like a brand new band where you've got a sound and you need someone to fit that sound. You've got a very identifiable, you know, sonic delivery that you need someone to work with, you know. So,
Do you think Max can sing power metal?
Man, I'd like to see him try. I would like to see him try. You know, Twins is taking a bit of a rest, so you know what, it might be the time to get him in. It's funny actually because obviously I've got such good memories with Alex, and Alex drummed for Sleepaway when I was in America and stuff.
Yeah.
So I got a lot of good memories with, you know, members of your band, yourself and Alex, and obviously I knew, you know, again reputation wise and coming to a few shows and stuff. You know, it's cool because what started out as an idea in an open mic night became something that you were playing Bloodstock and touring around, you know, which is, that in itself is fantastic. And you know, talking about creative ideas and stuff, that's amazing.
Yeah.
It must feel like...
Yeah, it's been really good fun. Yeah. I wouldn't change anything.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I'm really excited. You know, I'm really excited for the future for you guys as well. Obviously, we are here on the Gimme A Hull Yeah Wrestling podcast to talk about wrestling. Before we talk about our topic today, which you've chosen, again, similar line of questioning. Where did wrestling start for you? Where did the love of wrestling come from?
As a kid, I don't know where it, like, I can't pinpoint the moment I got into wrestling. It just always seemed to be there.
Right.
But I have like memories of watching videotapes. Yeah, that's right, videotapes, VHS.
Yeah, man, me too. I remember those. Yeah.
I just remember I think I had one. There was one videotape I remember having, and I freaked out because I found it on the network the other day, and it was an Undertaker tape.
Right.
And it was called like The Undertaker, He Buries Them Alive, and it was just like 5 Undertaker matches, and they were all pretty shit. One of them was... Oh, sorry, am I allowed to swear on this?
Yeah, you are. Of course you are, mate. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. One of them was the Undertaker versus Undertaker match from SummerSlam, I think it was.
Yeah,
it was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen.
Yeah, and they've redone that as well. They've redone that so many times too.
They did it with Kane, didn't they?
Yeah.
And then, so me and my mates at school were into wrestling, and a real good friend of mine, called Sean. So we had this kind of setup where his granddad had Sky.
Right.
None of us had Sky because it was mega expensive then.
Yeah.
So his granddad had Sky. His granddad would tape Raw for us, bring it round to Bowers' place, Sean's place, and then I'd go over and we'd watch Raw together. This was during the Attitude Era, so we got to see all like the crazy Austin stuff. Austin was like, I think Austin was his favorite wrestler. He had a tape of Austin's matches as well. And then I think I was more of an Undertaker guy.
Yeah.
which I think has explained a lot of my kind of musical choices and clothing choices and that kind of thing.
I mean, it's, I think it explains a whole generation's clothing choices and musical choices, to be fair. I know people that have dressed like the Undertaker for like 20, 30 years, you know what I mean?
I don't think I've ever gone so far as to get like a black leather trench coat,
Mate,
but definitely
I've got about 50. I've got like, I've never grown out of it. I'm still in my phase.
I definitely had the hat. I had the hat a couple of times.
Yeah.
And some big like cowboy boots and biker boots, that kind of thing. But so I think that's I can never pinpoint an exact moment, but I do remember one time we were watching. There was a Raw where Sable came out and she had the black handprints on her boobs.
Oh yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember it well. Yes. I think
we were watching it. One of my brother's mates brought it around on videotape, so we're watching Raw, and then I didn't know this was going to come on, and this image came on, and I think my mum walked into the room while we're watching Raw, and then that thing she came on with the handprint. So, what the fuck are you watching?
what timing as well? That's amazing. Well, that's like a life. Yeah, that timing is incredible for your mum to walk in just at that point as well. Like,
just to see Sable's hand-printed boobs.
Awesome, yes.
And the King going crazy as well.
Yeah, Brock is a lucky man indeed. What that was, those handprints. Wow, again, a whole generation of people. You talk about people generation of people dressing up like the Undertaker. A generation of people remember those moments very specifically for very specific reasons, which is great, and again, good classic moments. So before we move on to logic in wrestling and realism, which was your chosen topic of today, give me a couple of standout wrestling moments. Obviously, you've talked about where wrestling first started for you, but things that you will remember apart from the handprints, I mean, it could be one of those, and justifiably, it could be, but give me a couple of sort of standout favourite wrestling moments, either from the past or from present day.
So I know lots of people talk about like the Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania.
Of course, yeah, it's a big debate, isn't it? Whether it's the best match.
Yeah, totally. But one of the memories one of the vivid wrestling memories I have was actually from one of their first matches. It was at an In Your House.
Right, yeah.
And it was a really good match. And I remember it never ended, like it was a no contest. Because essentially, I think basically they kept fighting on the outside and so they counted them out. And then they just kept brawling. And then all the wrestlers come out to pull them apart, all the jobbers come out to pull them apart. And that was the first time I saw the Undertaker dive over the top rope.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
And there was this big crowd of wrestlers to catch him.
Yeah. Fully cleared it, didn't he? He was like way over. Yeah, amazing.
I mean, this is like this must be 96, 97 when he did it.
Yeah.
So that's like a vivid memory in my head. In terms of like recent stuff, I mean, NXT is always the thing that I go for. I've got to say that the most recent thing I really loved, which is going to be a bit hypocritical of me when I go on to what we're going to talk about, was the Stadium Stampede with AEW.
Yeah.
That was so funny. Like, there was some bits of it I'm just like, this is a bit crap. But, I mean, when you saw Hangman Page come out on his horse.
The horse, yeah.
Oh, fucking hell.
Yeah. Sammy Guevara just like legging it, yeah.
Oh, man, that spot he did with the golf cart where he took the bump on the Dynamite show.
Yeah.
And he's like, his head cracked. I can watch that on repeat over and over again. Yeah. And every time I'm like, how are you alive?
He's an incredible seller. He's incredible. He took I think it was a super kick on Dynamite from both the books, and he folded, his body folded back.
Yeah.
Those JR keeps comparing him to Eddie Guerrero, and I'm like, yeah, the next Eddie Guerrero, and I'm thinking, if anybody's going to do it.
He's really good. I mean, I think AEW's got a few like niggling problems, but like Sammy Guevara definitely is one of those ones where I'm like, he's amazing.
Yeah.
He's just he loses every match, but I want to watch him every time.
Of course, and that's part of the fun, and that again, I'm squeezing one in because it's a good question. Who is it that's standing out for you at the moment? Obviously we talked about the Undertaker, we talked about, the history of wrestling and where you come from as a fan. But is there anyone present day that really does it for you psychologically, in the ring? Is it Sammy Guevara, or is there somebody else that really excites you at the moment?
So in if I was to split them up in AEW, it's MJF because he's the quintessential wrestling heel.
Yeah, absolutely the best there is, I think, at the moment.
And the fact that he's keeping in character all the time, like, that's just it's amazing. And it's in this day and age, especially, he goes on podcasts and he's still MJF.
Yeah,
like he doesn't like stop and he's like, oh, I'm just going to be this guy. I watched a documentary on him on YouTube, and the level of meta kind of it's mind blowing. Like he's taking this camera crew around his house, and then he's got his family there. And then when he's out of the room, the family are going, "We're just actors. We've been hired to be here, and like this house isn't his." And it's so amazing. Like
I'm gonna have to check that out, man. I wasn't into him at first, and then it turned me on to. He's so switched on and so clever.
And he's 24, and it's crazy.
I know, right? He's going to do massive things. He's going to do amazing things. Well, we could talk about, like, do you think MJF needs a jump to, just again squeezing questions in because I'm interested. Do you think MJF would ever end up in a WWE? And do you think that now, I know we're going off topic here, but do you think that now guys like MJF, and Sammy Guevara even need that platform, whether it's 5 years from now or 2 years from now? Do you think that's the end goal for a guy like MJF or Sammy?
It really depends on how AEW do, like in terms of, because what they're doing is promoting a really good thing. Is kind of they're just being like a decent wrestling company. They're not trying to, because WWE is obviously publicly traded, so they've got to appeal to lots of different people and make sure they don't cross very many barriers. AEW is like, giving everyone the middle finger. Everyone's saying shit, which I'm a bit down on. Like, what was the last AEW show called? Like the pay-per-view?
They did Double or Nothing, didn't they? Was it Double or Nothing?
Yeah. So like when Austin gave people the middle finger, it was like that's his, and it became really cool. And he's giving people, he's as the Americans call it, the bird or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But on that AEW show, I think I counted about 5 or 6 different wrestlers giving people the middle finger.
Yeah.
And like, I get it. You're being all adult, and everyone can call each other, shitheads or son of a bitches or anything. But I think maybe you're losing the edge of it. You've got to like tone it down. It's like quality rather than quantity.
Yes. Yeah.
Like when so the few times WWE let people say a swear word, like, do you remember when Brock Lesnar said to Heath Ledger, "I don't give a shit about your kids"?
Oh yeah, Heath Slater. Yeah.
And everyone went,
yeah.
That had so much impact to it.
Yeah.
Whereas in AEW, they're just kind of like everyone's calling each other, pieces of shit and whatever.
But that moves on, nicely to the, just in case we have a difference of opinion here, I'm going to preface with, I do respect you as a person and a musician, but wrestling and realism. Now, it's an interesting topic, logic in wrestling and realism, which I'm really excited to get into with you. But the realism side of it, that comes from, I guess, for me, not scripting your promos. That's what that to me, you are going to let a few you know, shit slip, and whereas WWE, they almost cultivate it to make people go. Do you know what I mean? It feels staged when WWE do it, and they select when it happens. Whereas if you've got Chris Jericho going, Tyson, you son of a bitch, you know, it feels a little bit less staged. So, and that realism in wrestling and logic in wrestling, you know, I'm not sure there is too much of a place for too much realism in wrestling. Is that what you will argue today? Talk me through that. Talk me through your thinking behind this topic.
So my thinking is basically, and I'm focusing mainly on WWE because
all right.
That's mostly where I get my wrestling from.
Yeah.
Because like getting AEW is like I have to buy another app or if I want to watch New Japan, it's another app, another subscription service, and you know I've got so much money, and WWE Network is £10 a month. Oh, sorry, $9.99 a month.
There you go. We'll get our sponsorship in now. No.
And it's just, you know, I could go back and watch ECW or decent WCW or whatever. So coming from that kind of standpoint, basically what I'm getting at when I'm talking about like realism and logic in wrestling, there's stuff in wrestling that just doesn't make any sense. Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
Now I'm quite happy to suspend disbelief that they punch each other in the face over and over again and they never get a black eye, or they do now and again, but that's because it's an accident. I'm talking more about, like, I guess the production side of things.
Okay.
So they've done a lot of these matches recently, where like the Firefly Funhouse and the
cinematic universe. Yeah.
Yeah. So one example I can think of, which is quite an old one actually, but it sums it up for me really easily, is do you remember when The Rock and Mankind had the empty arena match?
Amazing. Me and Anthony talk about it all the time. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you remember how that match ended?
Mankind lowered the what was he in?
The forklift.
The forklift, yeah, and he lowered it onto the Rock and yeah, they had the camera.
Yeah, right. But that's it, right? So you see the shot of Mankind getting in the forklift and pulling the thing, and the thing comes down.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, there's a camera angle of the Rock's face, like from, like. Yeah. But I'm basically what I'm always kind of frustrated with. I'm asked to suspend my disbelief, and I'm asked to, by WWE, they're constantly saying to me, "Oh, you got this is legitimate competition, etc." Which is something I'm gonna bitch about later about Edge and Randy Orton.
Yeah, okay. Best wrestling match of all time. Totally.
Of course, it will be. But it's this kind of thing where they do these production ideas to make it more TV friendly, where it's like it doesn't make any sense. Like, where did that camera come from to get on the Rock's face?
Yeah.
And the Firefly Funhouse match with Cena, I thought it was very entertaining, but in terms of like wrestling, it makes zero sense.
Yeah, you and Anthony would agree. Like, Anthony points were the same. He was saying, there was no wrestling match. There was no referee to count three. He was like,
it's kind of bizarre, like, because we're in the middle of a lockdown, and so the real world has impacted WWE.
Of course.
But yeah, at the same time, I'm expected to believe that Bray Wyatt can transport John Cena through time, and he can teleport around the ring, and he can like turn into a monster with a mask on, and he's not affected by anything. See, that side of thing I can kind of get behind, the fact that he's like, he's a bit of a psycho and pain doesn't affect him. But when it comes to like, you expect me to kind of believe that WrestleMania has no audience because of the lockdown, and you're having to do things behind closed doors because of the real world. And then all of a sudden, John Cena is going through his gimmicks, and for some reason he's now in the NWO, and it's just, I like consistency, basically. If you either be consistently wacky, like Lucha Underground,
Oh yeah, that was amazing.
or you be consistently kind of focused on, like, we are doing scripted, legitimate fighting.
So what I'm getting from that, and really good points you're bringing into it as well, is you would rather have WWE have consistently, right back from the empty arena match, come up with wacky matches rather than sort of to-ing and fro-ing between requiring us to believe, that people are, the serious like marriage proposals are happening in like serious storylines, and then also like monsters are now taking over the universe. So it goes from serious real life stuff with real life marriage angles, to wacky Firefly funhouses and boneyard matches. So what you're saying is, with regards to logic and realism, you want, is it black and white thinking? Am I sort of to challenge you on that? Is that black and white thinking? You would rather have Lucha Underground, or like I'm just trying to think of an organization that focuses entirely on realism. So that would be
like New Japan.
The NWA is a good example of that.
Yeah. Well, if you look at like wrestling from like the 70s and the 80s, they obviously didn't do any of this wacky stuff because, well, I suppose you did have RoboCop in WCW.
Yes, and Chucky as well. Chucky the doll was there for a bit.
Yeah, that was like 2000, wasn't it, or something like that?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, yeah.
And of course they had the Yeti.
Yeah, God. Oh.
But that's what I mean. It's kind of like this kind of shit. It's infuriating, especially when like you get people who are legitimate athletes and like a Kurt Angle or Eddie Guerrero or Stone Cold Steve Austin was like a legitimate, really good wrestler.
Yes, he was.
And then you basically have to throw them into these situations where, like, what all of a sudden they're doing. I've got no problem with Kurt Angle being drinking milk and wearing a tiny cowboy hat and stuff like that because it's just funny.
Yeah.
But it's stuff like your suspension of disbelief. So, like, backstage segments.
Okay.
Are we, as the audience, to believe that the wrestlers don't realise there's a camera there?
I think we are supposed to know that they know there's a camera there. They know it's entertainment. That's the thing. I think the problem we have as wrestling fans is you've either got the ones that are the smart fans, which is, that know it's entertainment. And we are watching a soap opera for predominantly, of course, not entirely, predominantly dudes. It's a soap opera for dudes, right? And most people know that that's the case. You get the extreme ones, and if you go on wrestling Twitter, you'll meet a few of them that believe it's real life and will send death threats to Rusev for death threats to Lana for cheating on Rusev with Bobby Lashley. Those people exist in the world. But yeah, I think we are supposed to know. I think that's the thing. So my question to you, moving the conversation forward, is for you then: is wrestling too wacky or is it too real? Like where's because from what I'm getting from what you're saying is, you're like, it's too wacky. There's too much of the wackiness. Sorry, yeah.
I think my issue is with WWE anyway. At the minute, they can't make up their minds.
Okay.
So they will do stuff, and then they will talk about how this is real and this is legitimate, and that's how they get the shock value. And then at the same time, you get shit like the Undertaker. I love the Undertaker, by the way. He is my favorite wrestler, but I'm a massive hypocrite for not saying that the shit he does, where he calls lightning down and destroys a ring.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
It is.
But that's the problem I've got. It's kind of like I mentioned this the other day to Liz about we were watching a Ric Flair documentary, and we'll talk about Reed Flair and how I just mentioned. Reed Flair he killed himself with a drug overdose. And then on WWE, they used it as a throwaway line. in a promo. Was it Paige and Charlotte?
I
I
think
can't remember.
they did, yeah, absolutely, they did.
But that's what I mean. So they're bringing in like real world trauma and real world sort of emotional moments, and they're using them to create storylines, right? So that I haven't got too much of a problem with. But it's when this is going on at the same time as someone, going through time and someone being poofed around, teleporting around the ring, or
Yes.
that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're either living in a magical world or you're living in a real world.
Right.
You can't have both.
So you want one or the other, is what you're saying?
Yeah, you can still have wacky shit with the real world. You can still have like I said, Kurt Angle coming out on a milk truck and spraying everyone, or Austin coming out on a beer truck. Oh, this is another thing, right? This is another thing that pisses me off in terms of like logic in wrestling. When someone does a run-in and their music plays.
Yeah, yeah.
Why? or when someone if someone debuts or someone interrupts another person and it's like a surprise, and it's like, well,
the lights go out, yeah.
Yeah, or the lights go out, yeah, and I can understand like that happening in terms of like, I want you to turn off the lights, I'm going out there now. But when you kind of like just run into the ring to help your buddy and your music starts playing, it doesn't make much sense to me. Recent example was Jake the Snake on AEW.
Yeah.
When he debuted, and they had his music play, and it's kind of, well, why? Why don't you just have Jake Snake Roberts just walk out and interrupt Cody Rhodes and be like, "Look, I've got to stop you there. You're talking shit."
Yeah, I mean, it's the entertainment value. That's the thing. I think I totally understand what you're saying, but it's the entertainment value, and I think it's the suspension of disbelief, which is very core to what wrestling is.
Oh yeah.
But like, I guess for people that are listening and watching, what is the best example that you can think of what you're trying to say in terms of the realism thing? So in an ideal world, you're looking. So we've got Lucha Underground, which was amazing, which was entirely theatrical. It was a movie. Effectively,
It was.
Every week it was a movie. You had wrestlers in. I'm really gutted because Stu Bennett was supposed to be in it. I think he was on the last episode. I'm really gutted about Lucha Underground not existing anymore. So you've got that on the one side, but the realism in wrestling, what's the best example you can give people of what in an ideal world, what you would want, in terms of segments, in terms of things that have happened where you were like, that was on the money for me. That was exactly what I love.
So, most recent example I can think of, barring, like I said, the entrance music, was when Jake Roberts came back and he did that promo with Cody.
Okay.
But Cody Rhodes recently, all his stuff has been really good. It hasn't been wacky. It's been fairly straightforward storytelling wrestling. It's been like two people hate each other, and Cody's like saying, "I want to get my hands on this guy," and this guy's using legal methods to kind of prevent him from getting there. Yeah. Like MJF saying that, "Oh, you have to wrestle this guy first before you can wrestle me," and he's like written it down into a contract. And it's kind of, that's pretty cool. That's like something for your babyface to kind of overcome.
Yeah, I see what you mean.
I mean, I understand like the matches. I can't talk anything about the matches because, like, someone taking a pile driver for real would be paralyzed. And obviously, you saw that with Austin and when Owen Hart did it to him. And anyone taking a fucking sledgehammer to the face should be killed.
Yes, yeah.
So I'm okay with that because that's what I'm here to watch. Is like an action scene.
Yes.
It's like I say, it's more the other side.
Yeah. You want a little bit more realism in your promos, in your angles, stuff like that. So have you watched, like I say, there's NWA. Have you ever watched NWA Power?
The new stuff.
It's entirely YouTube-based thing. Billy Corgan from the Smashing Pumpkins runs it, and that is very much realism. I'm trying to think of guys. So they've got Damien Sandow is in there. You've got
Magnus is in it, isn't
Magnus is in there. Yeah, I spoke to Nick Aldis the other week. Actually, he's there. He's a lovely lad. Yeah, there's a few others that have come from WBE and all, and that's very focused on old school sort of 70s, 80s style wrestling, and very probably much more on the money for what you're trying to.
Check it out.
What you're thinking, yeah, check it out. It's like I say, it's free on YouTube to watch. But yeah, so I guess a couple more questions then, because obviously this is a big thing, and obviously we'll encourage people to comment and talk about their thoughts on whether wrestling needs to be more realistic, I guess, and there needs to be more realism in wrestling. And if we need a part 2, we can do that as well. Yeah, if we need a part 2, because I think it's a big issue, which is why I wanted to have you come on and talk with me about it, and we'll respond to comments if there are any on that. But how would you? Okay, so let's put you in the driver's seat here. So in an ideal pay-per-view, kind of, if you could book, a WWE pay-per-view, and there was an angle that you wanted to produce, I guess asking you to kind of fantasy book your own angle is quite a big question, but it might be easier for me to do if there has been an angle over the last 5 to 10 years that has exemplified, not perfect, because nothing is perfect, but perfectly encapsulated everything you love about wrestling. You're here talking about wrestling and realism. You're here talking about, to be honest, it could be something else. It doesn't have to be in WWE. It could be. So give me an angle that you have. I nearly made you fantasy book your own pay-per-view, and then I was like, that's a big ask for someone. We'll come back to that. If you think you could do it, we'll fit it in. But first off, over the last 5-10 years, give me an example that perfectly exemplifies realism in wrestling, the kind of thing that you love to see, something that people can go back and watch and be like, oh yeah, cool.
Tommaso Ciampa, Johnny Gargano.
There you go. Simple. Cracking.
They told a fantastic story, and again, so my girlfriend, we've been getting into. I've been trying to get her more into wrestling. So this is the one thing I used as like an example of this is what good wrestling is. So we watched like every pay-per-view match, every takeover match that they had. No, actually, we watched the Cruiserweight Classic first, and then we went and watched the pay-per-view matches. So when they were DIY against the Revival, and the Revival as well, just they're fantastic. I know they're called FTR now.
FTR now, yeah. Just saw them debut this week as well.
Yes. But yeah, that whole feud for me was pretty much spot on, because it was built up slowly.
Yeah.
There was just this. I mean, that was perfect for the production, because that moment when Ciampa turned on him, I forget which takeover it was.
It was heartbreaking. I was watching it and I lost my mind. I just bought a DIY T-shirt. I was like, oh no.
So like you saw that little, that was just so perfectly timed, because the little logo thing came in the bottom corner, the little thing that says it's all copyright WWE, and you're like, oh, that's the end of the show, and they're just kind of waving to the audience, and then all of a sudden he turns on him and chucks him into the barrier, and I was like, that's perfect.
Yes,
and that was like MJF is the other one, but. That was a perfect moment, and the entire audience just went, "What the fuck?" And that, for me, is what wrestling should be. I mean, I know a lot of people will disagree with me, but I'm a big Jim Cornette guy.
I can understand that.
He says a lot of shit, but he also says some stuff which is actually pretty interesting, and he's in that old school mentality, and I know he has massive hard-ons for the Revival.
Oh yeah.
But I listen to like his podcasts and little clips of him anyway on YouTube.
Yeah.
And he talks a lot of sense. I mean, there's some shit he says, which I don't agree with. I know he said some kind of dubious things on commentary a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But in terms of his like kind of wrestling knowledge and what he's into, I kind of agree with his idea. And the whole Johnny Gargano Ciampa feud was just so well done, and it was just so perfectly paced, and there was no rushing. It went. It's still going on. Like,
yeah,
and it's still entertaining.
Yeah, they've just had to finish it, but only so Carry On Cross can debut. So yeah, you know, it's a good point. It's a very good point you make, and a really good exemplification of what you're trying to say. So I look forward to what people think about that, and I think it's a great example of realism in wrestling. So yeah, before we finish off, I did almost ask you to fantasy book a pay-per-view, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you to give me 3 or 4 matches, and you can go across. Right, obviously we're going to leave the realism in wrestling thing for a sec. We're going to park that. We're going to ask people to comment on it and come back to us with questions. But if you could fantasy book me 2 or 3 matches across promotion, it can be anybody. Give me your kind of what if you had a pay-per-view to book, and it was your pay-per-view, Tom's pay-per-view to book. No, I was going to try and come up with a fancy name, but I can't be asked with that. So give me 2 or 3 dream matches that you would want to see at your dream pay-per-view.
What, just like current wrestlers?
No, across the board. You can go.
No, I mean, like alive or dead, or.
No, I did the other day. I did one. Darby Allin from 2020 versus Mankind from 1998. That was like.
Okay.
So yeah, think about different eras, and you can go dead or alive. So give me 2 or 3.
I would say Owen Hart against Kurt Angle.
Yep.
That would be pretty awesome. I would for the whole, I think the promo work and everything else, MJF and Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Dude, that'd be amazing. Yeah.
And then because like I love tag team wrestling, like I do have a bit of a hard on for the Revival as well. They are great.
One of the best in the world.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of a decent opponent for the Revival. I'd quite like to see the Revival and New Day actually go at it properly.
Yeah.
I think they've probably had a few good matches in the past, but I mean they've been kind of restrained by WWE.
Yeah.
So I reckon that would be a really good match.
To see the New Day in, say, an AEW, context with less restrictions would be really interesting. So those are good matches. Those are 3 fantastic matches. Again, we could talk about this for ages, but I'm gonna finish off today's episode and today's chat with another question for you. One thing that people seem to like when we did our last Wrestling with Bands one was if you, obviously as bassist of Sellsword, could pick a wrestler, dead or alive, present day or otherwise, to produce the theme music for.
Oh.
Who would it be and why?
Oh shit. Because the thing is, I have a massive thing for wrestling theme music. Like Aleister Black's music is amazing.
Yeah.
In fact, that WWE company, was it CF Dollar?
CFO, yeah, CFOs, yeah.
Yeah, they're shit hot. They're really good.
Yeah.
I don't know, man.
I know, like Eric Rowan before he left, and also Baron Corbin, I believe, are huge power metal fans. So
Oh yeah, I know Eric Rowan's into his like his folk metal and everything.
Yeah, I know he's got. I think Ailstorm are tapping him up to do some stuff with them.
Yeah.
Post, obviously, in the coming weeks. So I think that'd be good. And I used to really like Rowan. Actually, I'm really excited to see what he does as Eric Redbeard now. But yeah, go on. See if you can. I'm putting you on the spot too much, man. I apologise. I feel
I would love to write a proper cheesy 80s power ballad for Otis.
Yes. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
like a proper Robert Temper, "There's No Easy Way Out" sort of song,
mate.
With all the synths and all the electric drums,
Yeah.
and a proper 80s like hair metal singer. He just needs it. He is possibly charismatically, he's my favourite guy at the minute.
Oh, he's amazing. He's amazing, isn't he? He's amazing.
He can say one word and make me laugh.
It's like when he's like, "Oh yeah," it's like, it's amazing, isn't it? And like he does it like, I think because he had an interview with Lillian Garcia on the Lillian Garcia's podcast, and he talks. I mean, obviously, there's probably a little bit of character work going on there, but he does talk like that, and you're like, some of the things he says, I'm like, you're funny. You know what I mean?
Oh, just while we're mentioning Otis, and I know we wanted to finish up and everything, but that dream sequence isn't a prime example of the bullshit I don't want to see.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, that's it. The more examples we could fit in here, which is why I asked, is so that people understand where you're coming from. Because a lot of people, of course, go, "Well, wrestling needs to be fantastic.
It's real to me, damn it.
It's real to me, damn it." Yeah, you know. So but it's a good point. We're gonna title this, "Does wrestling need to be more real?" Because I think that's, I think there's some good points in that. We've discussed your dream, a couple of dream feuds. We've obviously talked a bit about Sellsword as well. Very excited to see the future for you guys. What we'll do is we'll see how people respond to this, and maybe there'll be a part 2, because whether wrestling needs more realism it's a big topic. There's a lot of stuff to discuss there. So Tom, thank you so much for your time today, mate. I really appreciate it. I've been Don from Gimme A Hull Yeah, and we'll see you again really soon.
See you later, man.